inside the VU TV studios for another episode of Valpo Sports Night. A lot to get to on today's program. Tracy Doro's NULA Crusaders are 2-0, and we'll also debate the future BCS format in college football. Before we get into all that, my guests today are both veterans when it comes to Valpo athletics. Andrew Stem, WVUR sports broadcaster, and Ben Heckey, former VU TV sports director and now assistant director of rec sports here at VU. First topic, gentlemen, the volleyball team finishes the regular season with 20-plus wins for the 11th straight year. Is this the year, though, they finally get over the hump and crown themselves Horizon League champs?
Well, it's going to come down to probably just a few close points against Cleveland State. The Crusaders faced the top-seeded Vikings twice in the regular season, dropped both in 5 games. So if the Crusaders can dispatch of the Youngstown State Penguins, a team they beat twice in the regular season, probably looking at taking on the host Vikings. And it's going to come down to a few close points. And this is a Crusader team that's playing their best volleyball here at the end of the year.
Of the last 8
so
matches,
you have to figure that they're going to have a lot of this momentum going into what would be a championship match.
Yeah. It's great in theory. I don't think it's going to happen this year. They just don't have that go-to scorer like they have in the past with people like Angie Porcher. They've got their setters are young, and that's the biggest thing that stands out to me. You have a freshman setter, Barrington, and you got Ariel Cudney filling in, who coming into this year, she'd only had 35 assists in her career before this year. So when you look at the team, they're 5th in the league in hitting, 2nd in hitting percentage. What that says is when they get their opportunities to hit on a good set, they're taking advantage of it. They're just not getting those opportunities. So I think with the youth that we have at setter, and setter is by far the most important position on a volleyball team. It's like your quarterback. So if you have a strong setter, it's going to put you that much better of an advantage there. I just don't think that the setter position is as strong as it needs to be to take down Cleveland State. I think they're just head and heels above the rest of the pack this year.
I think so. I mean, what else do you have to do, though, going into a Horizon League championship, winning 7 of 8 matches? I mean, this team is young but also very talented, sweeping your last 2 matches as well. What else could they have done to prove that they could make it?
The core, you've got Taylor Root in the back row.
Yep.
Very strong, obviously, Defensive Player of the Year for 3 years in a row now. She's what anchors that team, but defense is this team's strong point. They're great at the net with blocking. They do excellent with that. It's going on the road with a young team is going to be something that's going to be a struggle, especially in the Horizon League playoffs. Cleveland State's actually a program who, when it comes for that, they have a good turnout, especially within the Horizon League playoffs in volleyball. They're going to get people there. How do they handle that pressure on the road? Will the freshman setter and will a sophomore setter be able to take them to the next level? And I don't think this is going to be the year.
Okay. Quickly, before we move on to the next topic, Mary Dent, Taylor Root honored on Sunday on Senior Day, as everybody knows. What's their legacy? Obviously, Taylor Root broke a lot of records here, 4th in the all-time NCAA records for digs. Mary Dent, some would say she's a success in her last 4 years. Some would argue otherwise. What are both their legacies as they leave campus?
Well, Taylor Root came in with huge shoes to fill. She was taking over for Brittany Malicote, who before Taylor was the all-time leading defensive specialist that Valpo has ever had. So she came in with huge shoes to fill. I think she's going to leave this program as the most established player that's ever been under Karen Avery.
Fair. Yeah.
She's obviously Horizon League Defensive Player of the Year 3 years in a row now. She's really established herself, holds most of the records. She was the highest touted recruit coming into Valpo in the history of the program as well. She did not disappoint. She was able to carry through. Mary Dent, her shoes to fill. She came in as a spectacular athlete, jumps out of the gym. She was supposed to fill in for Angie Porcher. Now, I'm not saying that she's not a great player. She hasn't been Angie Porcher, who's arguably the best hitter in Valpo history. So she came in trying to be, people gave her too high of expectations. I think that she's done very well for her skill set, but she's not what a lot of people expected her to be, and they might have had too high of expectations.
I think kind of together, you take a look at the two of them as kind of a couple who sort of built the program to be able to compete consistently in the Horizon League. There were a couple of bumps and rough patches through those first couple of years, going from the Summit League, then over to the Horizon League, and now here they've kind of put themselves in position to contend for a top 2-3 seed every year in the Horizon League tournament. And I think together that will sort of be their legacy.
Okay, let's move on, guys, from the volleyball team now to the women's basketball team. They beat Indiana in their opener, and then Purdue Cali met the other day to begin the season. What is the biggest change, though, from last year's regime and last year's team flipping over to this year?
I think part of it is you look at the bench. Against Purdue Cal the other night, 13 players played. The Crusaders got 10 on the floor against Indiana. And last year they just didn't have those numbers because of injuries, because of other such things. Sheree Richardson was sitting out last year. Betsy Adams was hurt, didn't play. You look at things like that, they just didn't have a deep bench. And now they've got 10 players that they can play pretty consistently. all of whom have experience at some level or another, the other 3 being freshmen. And when you can bring 10 experienced players and have that kind of core group come back, you're going to see some things improve just through the course of being able to put depth out there.
To your point, Megan Calloway, Liz Horton didn't play all that much in their first 2 years on campus. Both juniors now getting some playing time, Liz Horton a little bit more. But again, valuable veteran pieces off the bench.
Yeah, absolutely. You talk about Liz Horton. She pulled down, I think, 8 or 9 rebounds in the game against Purdue Cal the other day. So she's become a valuable asset coming in off the bench, and another sort of big player that can go along with Gerardo and Gina Lang down low, kind of giving the Crusaders a little bit more size in what is really sort of a guard-oriented lineup.
Yep.
You know, it's awesome to be IU at home. Don't get me wrong there, but IU was 6-24 last year. That's not exactly a statement win. You beat a power conference team, yes, awesome. Tracy Doro's coming in. She's doing great things with that. She's completely changed the atmosphere. Different coach than Keith Freeman was.
Absolutely.
For the ARC itself, it's a house of horrors for Big Ten women's teams to come into. Last Big Ten team to come in was Purdue. Valpo beat Purdue. Valpo should beat IU. Those are the teams that Valpo should beat, absolutely.
Okay.
To me, the biggest difference this year is defensive ball pressure. Tabitha Gerardo was quoted in a recent video. That is the biggest difference from them. They're a little bit worried that they might get a lot of fouls called on them, but the defensive ball pressure that Tracy Doro and that coaching staff brings to the team and tries to, really impress on the team to pressure the ball, I think that's going to be the biggest difference throughout the year. And just the atmosphere that new coaching staff brings. It's a really different feel to the entire program this year.
I look at the 2 ball handlers, Laura Richards, Shakira Scott. I think they've been doing an excellent job of spreading the wealth, I guess, and driving the lane, getting kickouts for open threes, as we saw in IU, the game against IU, 8 for 17 from beyond the arc, due in large part to driving kicks from Laura Richards, Shakira Scott. I mentioned the 3 ball as well. Are they relying too heavily from beyond the arc? Again, 8 for 17 against Indiana, but then just 4 for 25 against Purdue Calumet. Nothing seemed to be dropping. Are they able to make that adjustment, and are they putting too much emphasis on the 3 ball?
Live by the 3 and die by the 3. It's going to
live by it, but it's tough. Yeah,
it's going to keep you in games when you're shooting well. It could put you over the edge when you're doing really well with it. You're kind of seeing the women's team take a page out of the men's team with the 3 ball. This is something that historically the men's team's done. Now the women's team's starting to do it. It's great when you're making those shots, but you're not going to always be playing Purdue Cal when you can get away missing all of those 3 balls as well. So again, you live by the 3. It's going to keep you in a lot of games maybe you shouldn't be in. And you're going to die by them, and that's going to bring a lot of teams closer to you.
Okay.
Yeah, I think as it goes along, that's kind of how the team is set up right now. Still very guard-oriented. And, you're not going to give the ball down low to Gina Lang and just say, go to the block, we'll get it to you there, and you kind of go ahead and try and take it strong to the basket. She's more of a mid-range jumper. Really, all the forwards and the posts are more mid-range type players. So it's going to be kind of, until they can develop a solid post presence and get a little bit more out of those ladies down low, that's kind of going to be how their offense is going to have to run.
Either way, I'm excited for Crusader women's basketball for the first time, I guess, in my tenure here.
Absolutely.
Even though it was IU, that was a team that came struggling from last year, and Purdue Calumet. Still reason for optimism, right?
Absolutely.
If nothing else, reason for optimism. Let's move over to the men now. They're 2-0 after taking down Georgia Southern and Northern Illinois. Coach Drew seems to be dipping into his bench more and using more of the guys in his rotation than he did last year. Is this the right thing to do, especially early on?
Absolutely. If you've got the horses, use them. And I don't know, you look kind of how the Horizon League tournament turned out last March, and I don't know whether it was guys being tired or whatever, but when you can be able to go and play 10 solid deep, I think they're 9 solid deep now, and then when Capobianco comes back from his hernia injury and Levante Doherty gets eligible, they'll be able to roll more than 11 deep and to be able to substitute guys. And really the nice thing about this Crusader squad is there isn't a tremendous drop-off from like guys 3 through 9 going through on the bench. Once you get past Brokaw, and Kevin Van Vyk and Capobianco when he's healthy. Once you get past those guys, and Bugs handling the basketball, once you get past those guys, there's a lot of interchangeable parts. Guys can come in, keep the offense moving, keep playing well defensively, and keep guys rested. This is a senior-laden team, kind of get the freshman experience, but still let those a little bit older guys save their legs a little bit for conference season.
Absolutely. When you have the depth to dip into it, you absolutely need to. We saw as the year went on, they were only playing 7 deep at times last year. They traveled out to California against Loyal Marymount. There we go. Excuse me. But and then they only traveled with 6 or 7 guys, and so that's just a thing. I do have a lot of concerns with this though this year. What the strongest point of that team was last year was their chemistry. They played so well together. They were a brotherhood on and off the court. This year, you brought in a lot of new people to the mix. And how is that going to affect this team going forward? Are they as accepting, things like that. So all these people are great. I'm starting the Rossi fan club. Every time he hits a three, I'm calling it a Rossi bomb.
Okay.
I think this team has every tool that they need to achieve their success. But there are still those concerns that I have this year. Whether at times are they going to take plays off. We saw there was a player on the team last year who was kind of notorious, for taking a play or two off. He's no longer with the team.
Right.
Did they pick up someone else that was like that? And the biggest thing to me is going to be team chemistry. If they can build on what they did last year, continue to keep that cohesive group, this team, with all the horses they have off the bench, is going to go far. No question.
To your point, though, the guys that wouldn't necessarily buy into the system have left. I think the bad eggs like Jay Harris, like Richie Edwards, they didn't buy in. And you know what? Don't let the door hit you on the way out, because they're out of the program now. But I think the guys that are here now understand their role. Talked to Ben Boggs the other day, too, and he said, whatever role Coach Drew puts me in, I'm going to do. And I know that's the politically correct answer, but I think they embody the attitude of Coach Drew and will really take off. And I don't think chemistry will necessarily be an issue.
Well, I absolutely hope not. I want this team to succeed for every reason possible. However, you always have to wonder when you bring in those new people.
Sure.
Levante Doherty's coming in from South Florida. That's a completely different atmosphere down there. You're playing in the Big East A, and you're coming from an area that's not exactly like Valparaiso. You've got Alex Rossi. He's coming in from California. You have Jordan Coleman coming in from Hawaii. These are different style programs than what Valpo runs. Coach Drew runs a tight ship in there. They have very high standards. So can they transition well? And for the most part, I think they have. But this is still really early in the season to look into that.
Quickly, in 10 seconds or less, biggest concern going forward?
Cold three-point shooting.
Okay.
Turnovers.
Fair enough. When we come back, will the real best team in the NFL please stand up? We'll discuss that right after this brief timeout. This is Valpo Sports Night on VUTV.
I'm Matthew Barnard, and I'm on VUTV.
I'm Vince Liuto, and I'm on VUTV.
I'm Becky Venema, and I'm on VUTV.
Hi, I'm Professor Powell.
And I'm Lauren Whitney Gotbreath.
And you're on VUTV.
Hi, I'm Michael Graves, and I'm on VUTV.
Hi, I'm Pastor Jim, and I'm on VUTV.
We're VuVox, and we're on VUTV. I'm Logan Cohen, I'm on VUTV.
Hi, I'm Veronica Heckler, and I'm on VUTV.
Hey, I'm Kevin Deitch, and I'm on VUTV.
First segment in the rearview mirror, it's time to look outside the world of Crusader athletics and talk about the NFL, specifically the front runner this year. We're through 10 weeks in this NFL season, and there's really been no team that's head and shoulders above the rest. What do you guys think?
I got two tiers of teams right now, all three, I guess. I got my top tier with the Bears, Giants, Packers, 49ers, Falcons, Patriots, Texans, and Ravens.
Okay.
Those are the contenders for the Lombardi Trophy at the end of the year. The next level, teams that could shock. The Bucks, Colts, Seahawks, Vikings, and Steelers.
Okay.
They're a step below that first group, and then there's everyone else in the NFL. For me, the team, there is no clear frontrunner.
Right.
There's so much parity in the league this year, it's amazing, especially if you're an NFL fan. To me, the team to beat has to be the Green Bay Packers still. They have all the horses. They have all the horses. They got the veteran leadership. They got Aaron Rodgers, who's still probably the best starting quarterback you have in the NFL right now, and they've been there before. They know how to handle this. It's not something that's new to them. So all those other teams, they've been there a few times. You got the Patriots, Tom Brady. They've won their Super Bowls. They're starting to age. They're starting to get injured a lot. So to me, the Packers are still going to be the team to beat, regardless of the record. Even 6-3. 6-3 right now. The Colts are 6-3. Look at the schedules that they've played.
Right.
So to me, the Packers are going to be your front runner going forward.
It's a good point. I mean, you look at even the Bears within the division. A lot of people will say they're the best team in the NFC. The Bears and the Packers are going to play similar teams throughout the year. It's just when they play them. The Bears have played some cupcakes early on, and the Packers got the brunt of their schedule over with. And now I don't want to say they can go in cruise control, but they certainly have a less, the opponents are a lesser.
I hate to say this, the Packers should not have lost to the Colts.
Absolutely.
That's a game the Packers have to win to go forward. That was a game that made Andrew Luck's early career as well.
Sure.
So the Colts had a lot going on for them in that game, and that's kind of catapulted them forward.
Right.
Packers should have won that game. The Bears took care of business against the Colts.
Sure.
That's what's going to come down to. Who can take care of business?
Yep.
Well, I would like to say Green Bay.
That's okay. You don't have to.
I won't. I agree with everything that Ben said, but for the sake of having a little bit of discussion, I'll go to somebody from the AFC. I'll take the Houston Texans.
Sure.
The defense, headlined by J.J. Watt, guy from Wisconsin.
Sure.
But, and the way they run the football, they don't ask their quarterback, Matt Schaub, to do too much. Just kind of manage the game, and he's very successful at that. Just let the defense take over and let the running game kind of do their thing. And so far, they have proven to be by far the class of the AFC. And, the Packers do have a victory over them. They came back and beat the Bears, so they've kind of gone 1-1 against really the top tier of the NFC. And I think definitely, at least in the AFC, the Texans team would be.
Even with that, a secondary that sometimes have raised some questions. I mean, the Packers picked them apart. They do have a lot of good elements, good pass rush, good running game. Obviously, Matt Schaub does his thing offensively.
Here's my question.
Yeah.
Who in the AFC is going to attack that?
Yeah.
Maybe New England.
Yeah.
Who else?
Pittsburgh, but we don't know Ben Roethlisberger's.
We don't know how well Ben Roethlisberger's health. I mean, who else from that top-tier list of teams? I mean, maybe Joe Flacco and the Ravens, maybe. But, I mean, you just look, and the way the AFC is oriented is there's not going to be somebody realistically, except for New England, until they get to the Super Bowl, who can attack that secondary. And Green Bay is perfectly adept to do that.
The Ravens, another team in the AFC, they can't play on the road. The Chiefs almost beat them at Arrowhead. That is not a good game for the Ravens. If they're at home, the Ravens beat the Texans.
Okay.
If they're on the road, the Ravens can barely beat anyone.
Quickly, what happened to the Giants, by the way? I mean, a couple weeks ago, a lot of the experts were saying this was the team that was going to go on and hoist the Vince Lombardi trophy. 2 weeks later, I don't think those same experts are predicting the same thing.
For the same reason I said the Packers, don't sleep on the Giants.
Really?
They get to the playoffs. They've got everything that they need.
All you got to do is get there.
Yeah.
Elite quarterback, that pass rush, those receivers, great team. Don't count them out.
Okay, we'll switch gears now to the NBA and specifically the LA Lakers. Mike D'Antoni replaces the fired Mike Brown. Was this the right decision for Lakers management? And did anybody get an unfair shake here? I know Phil Jackson was rumored to possibly be the coach. Was quoted as saying he was stunned when he wasn't named the coach. Anybody get snubbed here? Either Mike Brown, Phil Jackson, Mike D'Antoni for being thrown into this situation? What, if any?
This decision, in my opinion, was completely based on Steve Nash being the point guard. D'Antoni was the head coach in Phoenix. Steve Nash was his point guard. That is it. Lakers have come out today. The biggest concern with D'Antoni is the defense he runs, which he doesn't really run well. So, and then the Lakers have come out and said, even when Phil Jackson was head coach, it was based on, they only ran 3 defensive drills maybe the whole year. So he says that this team knows how to play defense. He's not going to touch it. He's going to try to take that offense to the next level. Here's the difference between this Lakers team and D'Antoni's Suns. He had Stoudemire as his big man in Phoenix, and now he's got Dwight Howard.
Good point.
They're both big guys, but they play differently. Stoudemire was a face-up to the basket kind of guy. Dwight Howard's going to post up. That's going to be the biggest thing. Steve Nash, for him in this offense, best decision for him. It's seeing how Dwight Howard's going to take this offense. That's going to put them to the next level.
Will Kobe be okay with taking less of the burden when it comes to ball handling? Because Mike D'Antoni, is going to put the ball in Steve Nash's hands as much as possible. Does Kobe have a problem with that?
Less for him to do, move without the ball, get open, take shots. We saw in their most recent loss to San Antonio, he didn't even get the ball in that last possession. But D'Antoni's not suspected to take over until this coming Sunday. So when he gets there, when you got Kobe Bryant on the team, give him the ball. Just give him the ball, watch out.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you could make a claim perhaps that Mike Brown got snubbed a little bit, but, the Lakers are in win-now mode. They went out, they traded Andrew Bynum, they got Dwight Howard, they're ready to do this, and Ben's exactly right. Howard, a different sort of player, and that may be the difference you see in the offense, because Stoudemire could step out and do not only the pick and roll, but also the pick and pop, and you're not going to see Dwight Howard take an 18-foot jump shot or anywhere close to it, so the pick and roll is going to have to be really, really successful. It's going to have to be a lot like Tony Parker and Tim Duncan run down in San Antonio, but even Duncan is okay at taking that 15 to 18-foot jump shot, and that's not really Dwight Howard's game. So he's going to have to find a way to feel comfortable getting to the basket off the pick and roll. But if that happens, watch out. And then Nash getting into the lane, kicking to Kobe in the corner.
In general terms, though, have coaches specifically in the NBA, because I think they bear the brunt of the burden a lot of times, do they get unfairly thrown to the curb? Sometimes it feels like in the NBA, and they're more win now than anybody. They'll can you midseason. They don't care. If they're not performing, you're tossed to the curb regardless of some of the issues from a player standpoint, because we all know the NBA ego is bigger than this room. And a lot of times it isn't a reflection on the coach, but is there too much unfair scrutiny, I guess, in general for the coaches in the NBA?
Maybe, but I think you look at it and you see enough parity in the league. You see teams kind of go up and down and fluctuate and have success and then go backwards, that teams feel like they can win now if you make that one move. And if you make that one move and for whatever reason the coaching staff can't work with that move, bring in somebody else to try it. I can understand that mentality.
More than any other league, I feel like NBA head coaches are solely picked for one player on each team. Steve Nash, D'Antoni, Thibodeau, defensive idea of the Bulls. One coach is trying to optimize one player on the team a lot of times. When D'Antoni went to New York, it was kind of Carmelo Anthony, that idea. So I think when their star player is not putting out, then they might try to make that move.
I think in general, you look at all the professional sports organizations, the evolution of the coach, it's become more of managing egos, less than, the old school baseball manager is kind of out in Major League Baseball, if that makes sense. They don't pick a guy based on his ability to kind of manage a game. It's, can you manage all these egos? And I think the same goes for the NBA. Let these guys play, don't get in their way, and be able to manage all these egos when situations arise throughout the year. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely.
And it just seems like, to me, it's unbelievable, the evolution of the coach. But regardless, we got to take our final break of the program. On the other side, our quick hits segment, including the mess with the Miami Marlins. Stay with us. You're watching Valpo Sports Night here on VU.
We're Valpo Greek Life, and we're on VU TV.
I'm Rachel Bacher, and I'm on VU TV.
We're Mock Trial, and we're on VU TV.
We're Student Alumni Association, and we're on VU TV.
We're the Acapellas. We're on VU TV.
I'm Dave Klein, and I'm on VU TV.
Back here on Valpo Sports Night, again for our quick hits segment of the program. Andrew and Ben alongside. Guys, simply put, what's going on with the Miami Marlins?
Jeffrey Loria basically sold a bill of goods to the people of Miami. They got him to fund a new stadium, didn't have to pay for it, and now is unloading as much payroll as possible. I think Giancarlo Stanton's asking the same question today, going, what has happened to this team? And, it works out great for the Blue Jays, not so great for baseball as a whole, but, you're not going to see South baseball in South Florida die probably. They just built this brand new stadium, so there will be a team there, but they basically gutted a franchise again.
In hindsight, isn't it kind of funny to look back and say, well, maybe they weren't able to afford all those guys that they were signing to mega deals.
They backloaded every one of those contracts.
Exactly. It's kind of funny to look at hindsight. It's like, well, maybe that wasn't the best decision, and now we know maybe the mastermind behind that and his motivation.
He's running that franchise as a business and not a sports franchise.
Which many do.
He's making a lot of money off of this team.
Yep.
And he doesn't care about the product he's putting on the field.
You really believe that?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, he spent his money. It didn't work out. He's going back to what he thinks has worked in the past. But what he's putting out there in the field now,
okay,
AAA team.
Fair enough. I think we can all agree it is a mess, though, and kind of feel for some of the Miami fans who invested a lot, season ticket, long-term deals, things like that. But let's move on. There's been an increased number of concussions around the NFL, specifically with the quarterback. Has the league done enough, in your mind, to try to prevent what's going on, what you've been seeing the last few weeks?
Look at last weekend's concussions. You got Alex Smith, Mike Vick, Jay Cutler, Ben Roethlisberger went down, but not with a concussion.
Right.
The Vick and Alex Rogers hits, nothing malicious there at all. Vick was just kind of backpedaling. He must have just hit his head real hard on the ground.
Right.
Alex Smith became a runner, so he has that right to get hit. And you can argue the same thing with Jay Cutler.
Yep, absolutely.
Now, the Bears got the worst shake into that because it was offsetting penalties. So they didn't get anything going forward. And then Tim Dobbins was just fined $30,000 for that.
Yep.
That is 4.3% of his salary. So it's not really messing anything.
Right.
It's not desensitizing or taking away the idea of going for the big hit. So I think they're doing everything right still. It's just you might have had 3 fluke plays this week.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, there's not, they've gone to those safer helmets. They've instructed, guys. They're throwing penalties for leading with helmets. They're doing as much as they can. The nature of football is it's a really violent game. It's just like ice hockey. Concussions are going to happen the same way when you're out on the ice. There's just the risk you run and when you play a violent physical game like that.
Let's be honest, though. $30,000, you can find that under most of these guys' couch. I mean, it's not. Is it enough of a deterrent for the next time that they want to play like that and arguably dirty? that they have that voice in the back of their head saying, let's hit him in the stomach, let's hit him in the chest, not the helmet? Is there enough of a deterrent? Again, $30,000 is not that much.
Dobbins is not a high-paid player. He's only making $700,000 this year only. You know? But now the equivalent of someone who made $50,000 in a year, that is $2,100. That's still not a deterrent.
Yeah.
If you're making $50,000,
so
what's 21?
Right.
There has to be stiffer penalties if you want to deter them from doing
Take away games, maybe? Because that's what makes
But I mean, then you get to the point where you watch guys pull up at all instead of going for hits, and then you get complaints from fans, and it's like a very delicate line that you have to walk, and you don't want to ruin the product on the field, and I think you take your chances. I don't know.
Okay. Let's go to the guys who play for free now, that being in college football. This time of year always brings up the classic debate. What should happen with the BCS? What type of playoff system would you like to see, if at all, or do you like the current system? Things of that nature. I don't want to hear what you think will happen. I want to hear what you would want to happen if you were in charge.
Top 6 make it.
Okay. First 2 get buys, I'm guessing.
First 2 get buys. I mean, I guess you can do conference champs or whatever. You can just basically use 1 through 6 of the BCS standings. That's perfectly fine. Tweak it a little bit in terms of, how the numbers get adjusted. But that seems at least sort of fair. Biggest thing, 3, 6, 4, 5, and then the semifinals all on campus sites. So you do 1, then 2 weeks apart. Then you can bid out the championship game somewhere else to one of those giant bowls. They can go play it in Dallas.
Jerry Jones.
Yeah, they can go play it in Dallas or New Orleans or where have you. But, it's gotten away. Home field advantage is so big in college football.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, to ask realistically probably 4/5 of the major conferences who aren't based predominantly in the South, then to say we're going to make your teams go and play games in these bowl games that are centered on these stadiums. Unfair. Take it back to home crowds. Imagine 90,000 people in LSU screaming their heads off for a first-round playoff game or whatever. The atmosphere would be unreal.
Do you still keep the Chick-fil-A Bowl and the PapaJohns.com Bowl for some teams to get some postseason experience besides this playoff system?
Yeah, sure. You might as well. I mean, the NIT exists for the same sort of reason. If you don't make the field of 68 now, there's still something else to play for. There are all sorts of other tournaments as well. The College Insider, the CBI, whatever. Too many to count. That's for another show. But save those because guys get work, and those extra practices help you get ready for next year.
Similar to his top 8 teams, there's not too much difference between 8 and 9 as there is 4 and 5. Those 2 teams are pretty similar. Top 8 teams, there's really basically no discussion. You might even be splitting hairs to get in 8. So then you take your top 6 bowl games still. And that's the reason we have it switched. It's money.
Oh, absolutely.
Say what you want.
Oh,
it's
no,
money.
it is. Money talks.
So you have your BCS games still making money. So you're going to have 7 games still. And your BCS National Championship stays the BCS National Championship.
Okay.
First round, you have Fiesta, Cotton Bowl, Sugar Bowls. Then you take one of the next level. So you got Gator, Peach, Alamo, one of those. You take that and you make that your worst matchup. So you still have your Fiesta Bowl with your number 1 seed, your Sugar Bowl with your number 2 seed. Those are your 2 BCS games in the first round. Second round, Final Four, the 2 big BCS bowls, Rose Bowl and Orange Bowl. Those are your Final Four, BCS National Championship. Still your champion. Everyone still gets their money. Everybody gets what they want to see. They get the playoffs, top 8 teams. Everyone's happy.
I like both of them. I don't know what exactly should happen, but I do know that the amount of teams into the party should increase, solely because I think there's an indirect effect too, because now when teams schedule regular season games, instead of scheduling Appalachian State as your non-conference opponent, you're going to go out on a limb and schedule a Big Ten SEC matchup. Why not? Because you know what, if you lose, you can still have a chance at winning the national championship. Right now, as the system holds, basically you got to go undefeated. You do, or you have to have one loss to a top 5 team to even have a chance.
And you're seeing your preseason schedule does not matter much with the Notre Dame example.
Exactly.
Everyone's saying that they played a weak schedule now. They're going to tell you they didn't. A lot of those teams are still quality teams.
But do you agree the trickle down there? I think teams
Yes,
would be more likely to go out and play some tougher opponents.
And you've already started to see that in terms of like the 2015, 2016 schedules. They're starting to change a little bit, and you're seeing more power conference teams come together and play each other, trying to get those power points to get into whatever sort of playoff
Michigan
format
football
looks
this year.
Yeah,
Michigan. They took a chance. They failed miserably against Alabama. They win that game. They're on.
We've seen it in college basketball too. Look at all these early season tournaments. How fun are they to watch? You know, these Michigan States, North Carolina games, for example. I mean, it's just so many good matchups early on that I think they're depriving us as college football fans because of the current system. It needs to trickle down like that, and hopefully an expansion of playoffs comes. I know they're tweaking it next year, but not to the extent that we would all like. We have to end things there. I want to thank my panel today, Andrew Stem, WVUR sports broadcaster, and Ben Heckey, Assistant Director of Rec Sports. I'm Drew Taylor. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time here on VU TV.